Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Empowered Conversations, where I have amazing conversations with extraordinary people who are out in the world doing beautiful things in service to others and just all around living their best lives. And that is my girl, Claudette Campbell Esterine. And she is the president of the Daughters of Sheba Foundation, y'all. This woman is amazing. She had me on her podcast with a group of wonderful women a few weeks ago, and I was there to prepare some healthy and delicious food. Anyway, it was so much fun. And I was like, girl, I've got to have you on mine. You've got to come and tell me your story. I'm so inspired by you. So, the mission of the Daughters of Sheba Foundation is to significantly reduce poverty among women and children through targeted economic, educational, and skills training interventions. Her life mission and purpose has been making her mess a message, as she has experienced a lot of mess. She has persevered through childhood sexual assault, parental abuse, and is a rape and domestic abuse survivor. Claudette describes herself as a woman with an interesting past imagining her future daily with you. Claudette is a living, breathing human being who daily experiences life as a mother and grandmother of two beautiful granddaughters. She holds a master's degree in international relations and a second pending in theological studies. Claudette has over 20 years experience as a communications and marketing professional lecturer and is also a motivational speaker and trained spiritual counselor with both hospital and prison tenure. Claudette has worked in both the government of Jamaica as a communications specialist and in the federal government of Canada corrections. So, guys, drum roll, please help me in welcoming my most fabulous guest tonight on Empowered Conversations, Claudette Campbell Esterine. How you doing, girl?
I'm good. I felt like I needed to.
You're so funny. I love you. You are fabulous. Okay, girl. So I'm going to add you to the Instagram
Okay.
request to join. Okay. So, oh yeah. Let's see. Daughters. There you go. There you go. You should have it. You should have an invite. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining Empowered Conversations tonight. Yeah. So you hear that echo?
I did. I took it
Yeah.
off. Sorry.
Perfect. Okay. Now let me turn my volume down. Okay. We are here. I can't see your face
I
on
don't know why.
Instagram. Something
Okay,
might be
this is the
covering up
first
your
time
camera.
I'm doing this, so
Guys, to see your gorgeous face, girl.
I
Is there something covering the camera?
don't know.
I just saw. Oh, there's.
Oh, hold on. I think there we
There
go.
you are. There you are. Yay!
There.
Technology. Woo! We're live, y'all. We're live on 3 areas of Facebook. No, 2 areas of Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. This is so fabulous.
And you taught me how to do that, because when you came on my show, you had this camera there, you had that one there.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. What did I made the broccoli and cheese mac and cheese
yep,
because it was all about wanting kids to have more vegetables and they love mac and cheese, and it was a healthy mac and cheese too.
it was. And I've
Yeah.
tried it since. Not as healthy as yours, mind you.
Well, did you at
Nowhere as
least put the
healthy as
broccoli
yours.
in it?
I did use broccoli,
Yeah.
but I didn't go the natural milk that you use. I used my regular whole milk.
Gotcha. Hey, you know what? Baby steps, y'all. It's not about going from 0 to 3,000 overnight, you know? I'm just proud. Yeah. So Claudette, you really, you've had you have a very interesting background, and I am so honored to have you on Empowered Conversations tonight, and so honored that you're here and willing to share your story with myself and my audience. And just I'm so inspired by it, and especially what you do through the Daughters of Sheba Foundation, empowering girls and women and children. To for that not to be their whole life's journey. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I sometimes amaze my own self.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it has caused me, well, not just now, but ever since, to be more vulnerable and
Hmm.
open with everyone. So, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey. I shared, in your bio, and just like because so many people, there are so many, and that can be, anybody, relative to whatever chaotic or crisis situation or negative bullshit that they've endured,
We
so
can swear on
often.
here.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. This is adults. There's no children here. But it's like, what happened for you that you're like, boom, this is not who I am. These are might be my experiences, but I want to do and be better and just create something for others through what I've been through. What epiphanic moment happened for you for that enabled that?
How long do you have?
Girl, well, I don't go to bed till about 11, so
It wasn't one thing.
right.
It wasn't one thing. It came in stages.
Mhm.
Um, many years ago, as I shared with you, I became spiritual and all of that. So I started reading all of these books, and I don't remember in which one I read where it said that our life changes every 7 years, that we
Mhm.
go through a cycle, a cyclical change every 7 years. And I actually sat down and tried to map it out. So at age 7, what happened to me at age 14? And it kind of matched, and so for me, it happened in stages. So the first stage for me would have been my childhood.
Mhm.
I was an only child for my mother, and I like her, she lost a son before me or after me. I think it was after me, and the same thing
Mhm.
happened to me later on. I lost a son
Mhm.
as well. um but that first stage, maybe the first 7 years of my life, oh my God, Claudette, you're not going to cry. Oh my
Oh,
God. I
yeah.
always talk about these things. I never cried, but
Right.
you're doing something to me, Stephanie.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Is it something in the mushroom?
Well, you ain't done no damn mushrooms, girl. And like I said, hey y'all, and there was actually no psilocybin on that little piece of chocolate I did. There was nothing. There was nothing out of the ordinary that I experienced. So there couldn't have been even the littlest amount of dose in that little piece of chocolate. Girl, I think you just be open and share and being as vulnerable as you are comfortable being. And
I'm totally comfortable with being
awesome.
vulnerable. I just hope your audience is comfortable if I cry every now and again. But
If they weren't, they wouldn't be watching.
okay, in the first 7 years or so, my childhood years, my mom was I was a sing my I was an only child for my mom,
Hmm.
and she basically was a single mother, and I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica,
Hmm.
and so this was in Jamaica, and she and my dad parted ways. Let us say, maybe according to her, maybe when I was about 6 weeks old, still a
Oh,
baby, and
right.
it was apparently for her a very traumatic experience,
Hmm.
and she, according to her, because I don't know, but
Right.
according to her, she ran away. She left like a thief in the night because his mother didn't like her, and she claims they were whatever. So she ran
Yeah.
away with me as a young baby and went on her own. And life never was the same after that. For her, and obviously for me, I felt the effects of that.
So
So for
your mother allowed her, I guess, mother-in-law, was she married? She was married to your
no, they
father?
weren't married. They
Okay, but
weren't.
she allowed the mother Did your mother ever say what she didn't like about her?
Yeah, I think it was according to what I can gather from the stories. It was a situation of the mother thing, because this was like the eldest son, um, and they didn't think she was good enough for him, so he could do better, kind of situation. According to her, this is her
Gotcha.
side of the story. So I think it was more that. And my mother, I'm very much like my mother. Oh God, in many ways, in
Yeah.
that. Um, I am she was a bigger woman, bigger
Mhm.
sized woman. And
Mhm.
she was very aggressive. She was very opinionated. She wasn't educated, but she would take off her clothes and fight anyone in the streets.
Oh
I
my
use
god, I
my mouth.
love it. I love it.
I
I
use
love
my
it.
mouth and I use my
Yeah.
mouth to do that. But
Mhm.
she will physically, and she has, and I've seen her in action. She strip herself naked, so you have nothing to hold on to, and she will fight you in the streets. So I
Wow.
think it was all that about her. She was too
Mhm.
much for them, so she had to go. Well, she decided, no, no, I'm not putting up with this, so she
Mhm.
left. So
Mhm.
life for me became it um a troubled childhood, in that later on I would remember, and that's another story. But later on in life, I remember being sexually molested by a neighbor. I couldn't have been more than two and a half.
Oh, dear
um, I would
God.
meet him in my 30s. I went into a bank,
Mhm.
and I didn't see him. And even if I did, I didn't recognize him, not immediately. And he tapped on my shoulder. I spun around, and he said, he called me by my nickname, which I'm not going to repeat, and I hope none of my friends say it in the comments. So he called me by my nickname, and I turned around, and he said, "It's me," and called his name. And he hugged me. And when he hugged me, Stephanie, I tell you, everything flashed through.
Right.
It just went across my mind's eye. Saw this man. Well, he was a child, a boy then, but I saw this man putting his finger in my diaper. And so that was my first experience of sexual molestation. And I didn't know about it until
Right.
when I was in my late 20s, 30s. That's when I got
Mhm.
that image came to me when he hugged me. So that's how everything started for me. And then my mother was in very tumultuous relationships.
Mhm.
She later married somebody else, and they end up fighting, and so I witnessed all of that. So
Right.
I never had a I started seeing that man woman relationships can be difficult, and they can be a
Right.
huge challenge, because I saw them cursing and fighting. And the biggest memory I have was of her putting all of his clothes in the bathtub and filling it with water, and
Mhm.
then him doing the same to her. So they were damaging each other's property. And
With water?
yeah, she put it in the bathtub and
Uh-huh.
turned on the tap, fill it up. So the white, the blue, the yellow, the pink, the purple,
Would blend.
everything. Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah. So and he retaliated and did the same thing.
Mhm.
So that's what I grew up seeing for a
Mhm.
while.
Lot of anger.
Yeah, yeah. And then eventually he left. She kicked him out, and then we started moving. So I have moved from house to house, because we weren't dirt poor, but
Mhm.
we were poor. And
Mhm.
so we rented, and renting has nothing to do with poverty, but
No, 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 no.
yeah,
No,
but she was
no.
renting, and for every time the rent got up to about 3 months unpaid, we had to move. So we'd be moving by night and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So my next experience that I can recall is living in one of these houses that she rented, and then she sublet, and being molested by the man who she sublet to. So that went on in my first seven,
Mhm.
10 years of my
Right.
life. I had repeated experience of being sexually molested. as a kid. And then there was her own anger and abuse from her, because um, if it was okay, I would have gotten up and show you. I still have the scar. I have two scars on my body, one on my leg and one on my butt. I think it's the right cheek. Anyway, but the one on my leg was inflicted on me by her throwing a knife at me
Oh.
because I messed up. We had a patio. In Jamaica, we call it a veranda.
Yeah.
And we cleaned it. She cleaned from top to bottom on a Saturday. And me, whatever, 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid, I was out there playing. I had my teapots and everything, and I
Mhm.
was making tea with mud, not realizing that one of the teapots had a crack and it leaked and mudded the veranda. I snuck inside to
Yeah.
get something to clean it up, and she looked out the bedroom window onto the veranda and saw the mess. And she was cooking, so she came out with a knife and she was swearing at me. And I don't know what said to me,
Mm.
jump.
Right.
And because there's like I don't know what you call it, not a column, there's like a
Um,
border.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, something said to me, jump. And I jump. And it's when I was up in the air jumping, the knife landed in my leg. So she literally, basically stabbed me in my leg.
Wow.
I couldn't
So,
have been about more than 7 or 8.
did you have to go to the hospital?
No, I didn't. But another incident happened again, and this time a couple of years, or no, actually that happened when I was much younger, maybe about 5. When I was about 7 or 8, there's curfew, there is political
Mhm.
violence in Jamaica at the time, a lot of it. And
Right.
so we had regular curfews. This was in the late 70s. So
Mhm.
we had regular curfews. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. I hear you
Okay.
perfectly.
Okay. So we had regular curfews, and I don't remember what I did. As I said, I have a mouth. I've always had a mouth on me. I will answer you. I will
Yes.
answer you. And she said something and I answered her.
Mhm.
And the next thing I knew, this wasn't intentional, but she came after me, and we had a lot of we call them cabinets
Mhm. Mhm.
with the glass
We
covered
cabinet,
one.
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, we have
we're
cabinets.
talking about in
We
the
have cabinets
70s.
here. Yeah.
Okay. So I had lots of cabinets, and I would she came after me. I ran and she pushed me in the cabinet. And the glass, obviously, the glass broke, and
Mhm.
one huge chunk just stuck in my butt. I
Oh,
had to go to the hospital for that, and I
yeah.
got 3 stitches.
Did your mom, like, was she I mean, obviously she was enraged, but it's like, did she ever apologize? Or like, "Oh my god," or like, "I'm so sorry," or it was ever?
No, I, I,
Mm.
I have friends who lived next door to me for many years, and they never knew what was happening,
Mhm.
what I was living through. And many years later, in my maybe 10, 15 years ago, when I talk about this, they would say my nickname, and they would say, I never knew this was happening. And one of the things that I lost a lot of friends because
Mhm.
I never had the kind of relationship they had with their parents. So I lost a lot of friends because they judged me.
Right.
And in my heart, I'm saying, you don't know what I went through. And you
Right.
don't know that I never got an apology,
Right.
because my mother asked me once. We were living in a rural part of Jamaica. As an adult, I had my own daughter by then.
Mhm.
And she asked me, why don't you love me? I'm your mother. And I said, you really want me to tell you that? You really do? Like I said to you, do you have time? You really
Right.
want to hear? And I
Mhm.
started to tell her all the incidents and all the men that she brought in the house who molested me. And she said I was lying.
Wow.
She said, and this, I was in my late 20s. And she said, and I said, why would I? So I never got an apology. She went to her, that's another part of the story, but the long and
Mhm.
short of it, she's dead. She has been dead for many years now.
Mhm.
And she went to her grave with, I never spoke to her for about 2 years before her death. And I
Mm.
we never
Did,
healed. We never healed, she and I.
wow. Wow. So have you done any work around, obviously you have, around healing that, um, that experience in your life?
Lots, lots. And
Yeah.
this is why I was so amazed that I was tearing up when I started talking to you, because that it hurts.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it hurts more in the context of my own relationship with my daughter,
Mm,
not to recount what happened, because,
yeah.
as you said in your opening, I tell my story to help anyone else who's going through. Joyce Myers, who I got this phrase from, I make my mess my message,
Mhm.
and I have a lot of mess. So, what, fast forward a bit, I had I tried to commit suicide twice in my life, and that was in my early 40s. I tried to
Mhm.
commit suicide, and that's for
Mhm.
other reasons. So I went through therapy because of that.
Mhm.
And then in my chaplaincy training, the training itself, we had to spill our beans, we
Mhm.
had to talk. So that was part of the healing process,
Right.
because they always tell us, how can you expect to walk beside people in their pain when you are carrying a whole bag full? So I had to let it go. I had to
Right.
talk about it. So
Mhm.
I went through all of that. Um, what I found is that over the years, I let go pieces of it, so
Mhm.
I can say, okay, all right, I can let go that part, so it didn't happen in one, oh, I'm healed. It never
Well,
happened like
well, it doesn't for anyone. It is
yeah.
it is a process. It is a journey, right?
Mhm.
It's yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have been in formal therapy. I have been more in spiritual counseling. Nothing to me like finding a spiritual counselor who connects with me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And at the time after my suicide attempts, I had one such, and it's funny, it was a Catholic nun. She was pivotal in my healing, and she opened up actually the Catholic theology and
Mhm.
mysticism, and it's so beautiful, you
Mhm.
know. Their mystics and their own processes for healing, and
Right.
that really helped me. So yeah, and then I also studied at a Catholic university. I was in seminary Catholic, so yeah,
Right.
but to this day, I tell people all the time, up to yesterday, that mental health challenges,
Mhm.
whatever it is, it never leaves you. You learn to manage, you learn to cope, you get
Right.
strategies and tools, but
Right.
it never goes. It never goes.
Right.
Yeah. So
But
depression visits me from time to time, but I'm
mhm.
better able to say, "Hey, girl, how you doing? What's up?"
Yeah.
Because it always comes to tell you something.
Abso-freaking-lutely, and when I used the word journey, earlier, it wasn't like, "Oh, it's a journey." No, it's like where every single human being is on a journey.
Mhm,
So, it's about, like, where you are in that process throughout your life, where you were at this it's like you were stuck, and they were like, "You're not gonna move forward. You're not gonna expand your awareness. You're not gonna you can't just hold on to this in order for you to to be and do what you're doing now. Like, think about, you had to release and let go. But that was but it had to come at the time when you were ready to release it
mhm,
as well, and like ready to process and release. um and let's see, I was going somewhere with that. Like, we all, I suffer depression, anxiety, and fears. I mean, to be honest, I was experiencing some of that today.
mhm,
And like you said just a while ago, you said, okay, so when I am experiencing this depression, like, what is this teaching me? Like, what am I supposed to be processing or healing, or being made aware of?
mhm, mhm,
And you were doing that.
mhm.
And but the beautiful thing, the big, beautiful, beautiful thing that you've done is, like, so where did Daughters of Sheba, like, the concept of that, like, was that just like, oh wow, I want to, like, tell me about how that came about.
I've always been a woman's advocate.
Mm.
I grew up in Jamaica, as I said, and I grew up in Jamaica at a time of the greatest political change in the country, the 1970s. And so, we got our independence in
Mhm.
1965, right?
Mhm.
And so by the 1970s, we had gone through two prime ministers, one from more, let us say, conservative, not really conservative, but one more conservative and one
Mhm.
more liberal. And then by the time it got to the 70s, when I became a little more conscious, and my mother was always involved in politics. This is going somewhere.
There you
um,
I love it. I love it.
the prime minister, the new young prime minister of Jamaica, was a man called, he's not dead, obviously, he was called Michael Manley. And
Mhm.
he came up with this thing called democratic socialism.
Mm.
And about blackness and embracing our culture and our identity and helping ourselves, being self-sufficient and so forth. But the other part of what came with him was a woman's movement, and it was led by his wife, Beverly Manley. And I do not call names, I do not name drop, but she was the first lady of Jamaica, and she and I became friends over the years, and we still are
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah.
She was a pivotal point in my life. And I in many ways have emulated her in many ways.
Mhm.
She's a
Mhm.
I won't say that I'm a good speaker, but she's a great speaker. She's a writer. I write. So
Yeah.
I've emulated, unconsciously patterned her in many
Yeah.
ways.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she was so I've always been woman conscious because I was a
Mhm.
part of that youth organization, and I was always more on the woman's side.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I walked alongside her because she led the women's movement, and I was a teenager, 18,
Yeah.
19, and I 17 actually, and I was at her feet and at all of them feet. So I always had this woman consciousness. Then I went off to university, and I studied in the former USSR, which was Russia. It's now, but I was where we now call Ukraine. But
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I lived there for 7 years, and it was when that country was transitioning from communism to whatever it is now. So I saw how women were treated. I
Right.
saw how women were celebrated on the one
Mm.
hand, but on the other hand, I saw how they were worked like dogs. So all of that came together for me, and I knew I would always have something to do with women and
Right.
influencing women and being a part of women's movement some way, shape, or form. My thought was that I was going to go back to Jamaica and enter politics. That's another story why that didn't happen. Um, but I didn't
Yeah.
enter politics as a representative, but I was always behind the scenes. I always worked with the party. I always worked with ministers of government and so forth.
Mhm.
But I always had this woman's focus. So fast forward, migrating to Canada and finding myself alone after my relationship ended. And then, well, social media started somewhat before we came to Canada 20 odd years ago. But
Right.
it burst for me, social media burst for me when I was in Canada. And so I started when Facebook came. I was one of the first people on Facebook. And so when Facebook came about years later, I decided that I always knew I wanted to also counsel. So I
Mhm.
decided to
Mhm.
blend everything, and I started a Facebook group called
Mhm.
Daughters of Sheba.
Yeah.
So it was a private Facebook group, a secret group, and it eventually it got to about 30 of us. But with women, we can't support each other. We find it hard to support each other. We find it hard to say, Stephanie, I love those glasses and really mean it. You
Right,
know,
right.
you
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
yeah. So the group kind of dwindled down to about 10, 13 of us. And eventually there was, I remember one woman cussing me off, telling me I'm too bossy and other, and maybe I was. I can be. So
That's just her but I want to jump
yeah,
in
yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
because I'm oftentimes, told the same thing, like, "Hey, it's always got to be, what you want, your way." And it's just that I will speak up. You will speak up. You've been saying this the whole time you've been on. It's like you use your voice. The other woman, okay, so the other woman maybe doesn't have the courage to speak up. So because she's choosing not to, she then, is like,
Lashes
like,
out at
well,
me.
Claudette, just speaks and speaks and speaks. But she just needs to, have
Use
that
her
courage to
voice.
then to speak, because it's like I am so strong in how I feel, and how I feel about things. And sometimes people are like, they can become intimidated by that, but there's nothing. Don't be intimidated. I don't expect you to think how I think or feel how I feel, but I'm very, very strong in how I do. But I respect somebody who comes back, well, Stephanie, I feel this way. I
Mhm.
think this,
Exactly,
even if it's different.
exactly, exactly.
I love
I
that.
I absolutely, and even in my intimate relationships, for most of my intimate relationships, Stephanie, I was the boss. Why? Because I have this mouth
Right.
and I'm going to use it.
Girl, there's one thing I am not, and that is wishy-washy with communication.
I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, yeah,
And
you know
if
how
I
I
don't
feel.
tell you, people always tell me, if Claudette is silent and you want to know what she's thinking, watch her eyes. My
Right. Oh,
eyes
yeah.
will always tell you what's going on inside of me.
Yeah, yeah.
So this woman, she literally cussed me out, and the group kind of just broke up.
Yeah.
But there was like about 4 or 5 of us who kept in touch. We never lost contact, but the formal group died. My husband, who I was married to for only 5 months, my
Mhm.
last husband ever going to be in this life, let me just say that. You said to me earlier, I said we were talking about manifesting, and you said,
Yeah.
manifest it. I'm not manifesting no more husband.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
So this man, his name was Wayne. He and I were married for we it was a long distance relationship,
Uh-huh.
and we were courting for just about 2 years from a distance. We would talk and stuff like that, and then I went to Jamaica. He was in Jamaica, and I went to Jamaica 2 or 3 times to visit with him. And in fact, finally, he wore me down, and we got married in January 2020. Um, on on July 4th of 2020, my granddaughter is born on July 1st, which is Canada Day, my first granddaughter.
Uh-huh.
So that year, because it was a weekday or something, we celebrated. We planned a party for July 4th. It was a Saturday. And so I was over at their place, and we're getting ready, just about ready to start the party,
Mhm.
when my phone rang, and I didn't know the number, so I didn't answer. But the person kept calling, so I finally said, "Who the fuck is this?" And
Yeah.
I answered, and it was a woman who introduced herself to me as his niece, and I knew of her, never met her, but knew of her. And
Uh-huh.
she started crying and saying that they kill him, they kill him, they kill my uncle. Wayne gone. Wayne is gone. And I just didn't believe it.
Mhm.
He was murdered. That's another story, but he was murdered, and he was shot at a bar, like a bar shop. I don't know if you've ever been to Jamaica, these street side places.
I have not, but I'm
Yeah.
definitely coming. I'm definitely coming.
So he was shot, and
Mm.
5 hours later, he died at the hospital. He bled out.
Why was he
And
shot?
um, the story is this, that uh, he went, it was, so this is some of this I'm saying publicly for the first time.
Okay.
I've kept some of it to myself, but hey, you're nice. I'm
Mhm.
gonna. So he went home from work, and he was at home, which is like 10 minutes away from
Mhm.
the location where he was murdered, well, where he was shot. And he went home, and I understand that he got a call by the lady, one of the ladies who was running the bar, or the bartender, or whatever, saying it was her birthday, come and have a drink. We as I said, we had a long distance relationship, and he went. His son later told me that when he went to his house, he could see that he didn't finish his supper, figuring that he was just going to have a drink and come back and finish, because he's not the kind of person who would waste food. So he went to the bar and was there, and the way it was set up, he was like in a corner, and
Mhm.
another fellow apparently came in looking for his girlfriend, and he had a gun, because he was intent on either killing her or seriously harming her, because it's a long story, but because
Oh.
her family, he had domestic violence case, he had beaten her badly, and her family retaliated and beat him badly, so he came to either kill her, kidnap her, whatever. Somebody in the bar, because my husband was a
Uh-huh.
security guard. So somebody in the bar shouted out to my husband as if he is a cop, and asking him if he has, they said peace, meaning his gun. So
Yep,
they
yep,
gave
he's
this gunman the impression that there was a cop back there, an armed cop back there. So at the same time, it's also, he was texting me. So because when we're piecing everything
wow.
together, the timing and the last text that I have on my phone and all of that, so his phone light came on, and the guy saw the phone light and just opened up
Mm.
and shot him. He didn't die on the spot. He lived in a rural part of Jamaica, and
Mhm.
by the time there was no ambulance, they put him in a car and took him to the hospital, and 5 hours later he was dead.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that happened, and I went through the
Yeah.
process. I went through the every friggin' cycle, that the stages of grief that they
Right.
write about, more than the five. I think I went through about 15 stages of grief. And at one point I got up and said, "This is not you. This is not you, and you have to get the fuck out of this mood,
Mhm.
because we're not doing this again. We're not going
Right.
back into
Right.
depression. We're not
Right.
going back to the pill bottle.
Mhm.
I'm not a drinker. I never drank or anything like that. So you need to fix this."
Mhm.
So I emailed my girlfriends, or WhatsApp them. I WhatsApp three of no
Mhm.
five of them, and say, "I need help." And the idea, and this is when you go through depression and you go through therapy and you go through counseling and all that, when you need help, who to ask for help,
Mhm.
and all of that. So I knew I needed help, and I knew who to ask. So I asked them for help, and they say, "Yeah, what you want?" Because they were always there. I
Mhm.
said, "It's not for me. I need to help other Jamaican women. That's how I'm going to heal," because I was angry with Jamaica. If
Yeah.
you said ja, I would be in your throat. I didn't want to hear anything about Jamaica. I didn't want to have nothing to do with Jamaica, because they killed my husband. They
Mhm.
killed my last hope, dream, possibility of having a companion before it's time for me to go. So I was angry as hell at Jamaica.
Mm.
And my spirit said to me, in order to heal, you have to forgive Jamaica. You
Mhm.
have to forgive this guy who did
Mhm.
it. And how are you going to do that? And that's
Right.
how Daughters of Sheba came about as a public organization. So we registered it. It was no longer a secret. It
Mhm.
became a registered nonprofit organization to help women. That's why we focus on women, because it's for me.
Yes.
I've always been a woman's
Yes.
advocate, so I needed to do that.
Yes. Yes, because you're advocate listen, what I'm hearing, you're advocating for your mother because, she was violent towards you.
And
That's
she was
uncalled
and
for.
she suffered violence. I finally
Exactly.
learned to acknowledge that from her
Yeah.
own mother, and
right.
all of them. Yeah.
And the woman who wasn't strong enough to leave the man that was abusing her,
Mhm.
the little girl in you that wasn't able to save yourself from being molested by those multiple
Yeah.
men. Oh yeah. For oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's how it came about. That's how it came about. And we're privately funded. It's
Mhm.
my money for the most
Mhm.
part. Like I tell people, I go to work to give it to Daughters of Sheba. So
Mhm.
once I pay my bills, it goes. We're now down to it's four of us as directors, my two besties and my daughter. And among us,
How old is your daughter?
my daughter is 30. How old is my daughter? 33. She was born in 1987. Oh, she's 35. She's 35 next week. She's October 15. So she's
Wow.
35 next week. Yeah.
And I'm sure your relationship with her is completely the complete opposite that
No,
yours was
you're
with
wrong. You're wrong.
really?
You're wrong.
And with your mother? Really?
Well, obviously, I went overboard for my daughter. I
Mhm.
overcompensated with my daughter.
Meaning you're not violent towards your daughter.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no,
that's what I'm
no,
talking
no.
about. Right,
I
right,
hit
right.
that girl. I hit that girl once. No,
Uh-huh.
twice. The first time I hit my daughter, really hit my daughter, was that she stole money from somebody. And I needed to cut that crap out of her immediately
Mhm, mhm,
because
mhm.
we don't steal from people.
Right.
It wasn't a lot of money, but still. And she was
Right, it's
just
the
a
concept
kid.
of
And
taking.
she was
Right.
just a kid. Yeah. The
Mhm.
other time that I didn't really beat her. I was raising my hand to over her head to get to a cupboard, and she thought I was going to hit her. And she ducked. And in that moment, I realized, be careful. Your daughter is scared of you. And I never hit her again. We had a quarrel another time later in life, and I
Mhm.
was in the kitchen making something, and I had a knife in my hand, and I was gesticulating with the knife, and she's never forgotten that. But so we have a strained relationship at time. When we're
Mhm.
friends, we're the best friends.
Mhm.
But when we're strained. And right now we're strained. I have no shame in saying it. Right now we're
Right.
strained. I was saying to a friend yesterday morning, he was talking to me and he said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Two things, but I'll only tell you one because I didn't want to talk about my daughter."
Mhm.
But yeah, so we have my daughter once told me that I'm too driven, and I want her to be driven like I am, which is true. I I saw, Stephanie, what education did for me.
Mhm.
Education was my escape
Mhm.
from what could have been a different kind of life.
Mhm.
You know, um, if I had followed my mother's dictate, and I have to give Caesar what's due unto Caesar, my mother told me and insisted that I needed an education. She would say, education and manners, being polite, is going to take you through the world. That was her thing. So, in all fairness to her, as
Mhm.
far as she could, she made sure that I went to school every day. I had uniforms because we were uniforms. I
Mhm.
went to school. So I insisted the same thing on my daughter. I wanted my daughter to have a good education, and she rebelled against it.
Right.
She started university, she was there for the year, and later on I found out that she dropped out, which it pained me,
Mhm.
because I honestly think that she can do much more
Right.
intellectually.
Right.
But then I've come over the years to accept that not all of us like books.
Mhm.
Not
Mhm. That's
her
right.
house is full of books like mine, and she will read books and all that, but she doesn't want to study. She's a more practical type of person. So she's both a stylist and a nurse.
Right.
So yeah. But we have our challenge. I have two beautiful granddaughters. I haven't seen them in a little bit, and that hurts me.
Right.
But I have come to learn by getting it wrong. I don't know. Do you have children?
I do not. Mm-mm.
Okay. I have come to learn that if you want a child to do the opposite,
Mhm.
tell them Oh yeah, man, do whatever you want. And they would turn around and do the right thing.
Yeah, I have 18 and 20-year-old nephews.
Hmm.
And, and that is so true. And I know this, but it's like, sometimes it's like something real. One of their friends was killed recently. One of their
Mm.
20-year-old friends
Oh.
was killed in a car accident. They're not sure. He was leaving a party. They don't know that he was drunk or whatever, but he's still, and that like hit home. Like, so, I mean, I didn't know the boy, but
Hmm.
you hear of death all the time, but that was like my nephew. These are my nephew's friends. That could have been one of my
One of
nephews.
them.
And so it's just like, and I'm like, please, please, please take care of your, one of them definitely takes care of himself. And he's, super into health and being fit and also being mindful about how he
Hmm.
lives his life. It's amazing talking to him. He's 20 or, he's 18, and you would think you were talking to like a 40-year-old. And how he deals with his girlfriend, how he looks at life, how he looks at like what he's doing and his choices. It's like, whoa. I mean, he's so conscious. And I'm just, but then there, it's just like, please, with the other one, he doesn't necessarily take care of himself as well. But he's like, Aunt Stephanie, I promise I'm going to, I promise I'm going to. And it's just like, start now. And it's just like, because I started when I was 20.
Hmm.
And I know that when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, beyond, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm going to start taking care of myself. Oh, I'm going to start, I'm going to change this trajectory. It is so much more difficult. So I
Hmm.
have this, like, and I try not to harp or just like please start now with the good habits, start now with, being intentional and just being aware and learning who you are and learning, because it's going to be so invaluable throughout your life. And but with what you said, it's like you've seen both sides, and your mom was right, like education and knowledge, because especially for women, being educated, having that knowledge, it gives you more power. It gives you, it has
Hmm.
something else in your bag that you can carry throughout
Yep.
life as a credential, that breeds about a certain amount of confidence, life confidence, confidence in life to make choices and make decisions, instead of I'm just going back to the story of the woman in the bar who the guy was there to kill or hurt.
Hmm. Hmm.
You imagine her, just having no self power, no self worth. She has worth, but she doesn't realize her worth.
No, she
So there's
didn't.
this man who beats the fuck out of her and wants to kill her. And then it's like, I too grew up with a mother who was verbally abused and criticized and put down and abandoned when she was 8, 9, 10 years old by people that were supposed to be caring for her after
Hmm.
her mother died. And my mother, has always, everything is at the sacrifice of herself. Give, 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 give. And so often women are guilty of just give
Yep.
to the
Yep.
complete exhaustion of themselves, with that, because like my only worth in value is in
Hmm.
giving and giving and making sure everybody
It's
else
okay.
has got what they need. No, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And it's like you are being a good representation to your daughter of, hey, I know my worth and value. And you know
And she rebels against that.
right, and and I
She
rebel against.
rebels against me saying,
Hmm.
don't do that crap with me. You're not going to get away with that, you know? So, just as an example, so I'm a grandmother,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I don't fit in the stereotypical box of a grandmother. So, like, when her now husband met me, he was shocked, because I was in Jamaica when I
Hmm.
learned that she was pregnant, and she and we were going through one of those patches. We weren't talking, but again, I tell people I don't like to talk about it, but I see things. I get these visions, especially early in the morning.
Hmm.
So Stephanie, I'm always awake by 2:30 because that's when I
Yeah.
get stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's
There's
when I
some
get my
between
downloads.
2 and 4 a.m. when
Yeah,
you're waking up. I was
yeah,
doing that like 3 or 4 nights in a row a couple weeks ago,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah.
So
So I was in Jamaica because it was at a point where I hadn't met my husband yet.
mhm.
Um, but I was there because I was at a point here in Canada where I wanted to go home. I really want. I was living in Canada 12 years or something, but I wanted to go home. So I was at a point, oh, what had happened is that I had invested everything that I had in a business for my daughter. She would tell you she didn't ask me to. And I would agree, she didn't ask
Mhm,
me to.
mhm,
But here I was, a mother who, because I had spent most of her childhood helping my mother, which is another story, I had spent thousands of dollars taking care of my mother. I didn't prepare for my child the way I should. So
mhm,
I was now at a point where I had some money, I had a house and all of that, and I wanted to help her. So I set up a business for her, sunk everything, my RRSP, everything into it, and she fucked it up. And I was bankrupt.
mm,
I was bankrupted. And so I was at that point where I had to make some decisions. So I decided I'm just going to go to Jamaica and just stay there for a while or forever again. I don't know. So I was in Jamaica and I got this image that she was pregnant. I called a friend of hers. I said, "Is Abby pregnant?" And the girl said, "How you know?" I said, "I don't know. I just know." So that is how I contacted her after many months of not speaking to her. And we reconciled, and I packed my bags and came back to Canada to be
mhm,
here. Fortunately, I did. Because when I came back, Stephanie, and I looked at my daughter, because I lost a child before she was born, right?
mhm.
And I looked at my daughter, I saw me 20 years before because her neck was black. She had all the symptoms of a woman's whose pregnancy is in trouble. So
Okay,
that was why I was brought back.
okay, gotcha.
I literally saved her baby. She might not want
Oh,
to admit it, but I literally saved her baby because I came back and I started putting her on all of these supplements and so forth. And that's another story. And the night that if they had emergency C-section, it was because I was there and I carried on badly, badly in the hospital and said, "I know what's happening here. Take that child out." Because
cold
I had lost a
chills,
child. I'd lost a child under the same circumstances. But
cold
anyway, I
chills.
was telling you, the shock of her husband, now husband, when he saw me for the first time coming off that plane, I had on mini skirt and thigh high boots, and he was like, because he's from Africa, he's from
Love it,
Ghana.
girl.
He's from Ghana, so he's never seen a grandmother looking like this. I was hot,
I
smoking hot.
love that. Own it.
I was hot coming off the plane and I was single, ready to mingle and all of that. I was dating and
And
he was
save
like,
babies.
unsaved babies.
Yes.
And he just didn't understand me. And I'm not the typical grandmother. I am not. First of all, I do not accept money from anybody. I told somebody off the other day because I'm helping them with something and they said, and when I start making, I said, don't you dare insult me. If I need
Mhm.
money, I'll make my own money. If I only have a dollar, I will live on
Mm.
my dollar. I don't take money from people. Okay. So I don't take money from my daughter. I've never asked my daughter for a penny. You have some mothers and fathers who expect their kids to sustain them, not me. My daughter has never given me a cent that I've been in a situation where I'm short $100 and I say, "Can you lend me
Mhm.
$100?" And when I'm giving it back to her, she's getting 150.
Yeah.
As I say, she's getting it back with tax. That's who I
Mm.
am. So
Mhm.
she has a challenge dealing with me and
Mhm.
her husband as well because I'm not the typical grandmother. I'm not going to leave my job to come and sit at your house and take care of your kids. I love them dearly. I saw an article recently about a woman telling her daughter
Mhm.
that she needs to be paid babysitting fees. And there was this big debate on social media whether the grandmother was right or wrong. I am not your babysitter.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am not your baby. I
Yeah.
raised you. I put in my time
Hilarious.
raising you. Now it's your time to raise your
Mhm.
kids. If I decide that I want to have them over, when unless I'm really broke. When my grandkids are coming over, Stephanie, new toys, every food they can think of from my pocket. That's how I roll.
Mhm.
But don't take me for granted.
Right, right.
And my daughter often take me for granted. And whenever it gets too bad, I walk. I'm hurting. Like right
Yeah,
now, I'm telling you the story. I'm hurting
right.
because I haven't seen them
Mhm.
in what, 3 months? And they live 15 minutes away from me. I haven't seen them in 3 months. Why? Because I refuse to be insulted. I
Mm,
refuse
good for
to be
you.
treated.
Good for
I
you.
refuse. I will die alone, Stephanie. I will die alone. I don't
I
care.
love that. Yeah, I
I
love that
work
you
too hard to be this
right,
woman today.
right, right,
Too hard.
right, right.
Too hard. And this is what Daughters of Sheba Foundation is about. To say, I hear people talk all the while about empowering women and all that. You're not empowering women by telling them to twerk. You're not empowering women by telling them to bare their ass every single day on social media. That is not empowerment. You're not empowering women by oh God, I'm getting on my soapbox.
Girl, get on it. Get on it. Here, let me get you one. I'll go grab one. Let me get a soapbox.
That is not woman empowerment. I'm not a prude. Far from it.
Right.
I
Not with high heels and a mini skirt like the high boots, girl. No, it ain't no prude in that.
I am not a prude. I love sex as much as anybody else.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I I will party with the right set of people. I'm not going to party with everybody who I'm unsafe with. I
Mm,
do
mm.
crazy stuff. I've done
Yeah,
crazy stuff in my life. I've jumped on a plane to go meet a man who that's me.
right.
But
You run
I
towards life with open arms.
yes. And
Love
that
it.
and you can only do that when you're
Mm.
truly empowered. If you don't
Yes.
know who you are, if you don't
Yes.
know yourself, if you're not making your own bag or your
Oh,
own purse, if you are uneducated, I know people who don't like when I say it. If you cannot read and write, you are not an empowered woman and you're not empowering anybody.
girl, girl. This is like the best. I hope everybody was watching right in the last minute and a half. Wow.
No, but and it's something that really bothers me. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, that damn old woman, they
Fuck,
cancel you
fuck
because
them.
you have gray hair and whatever." But I know that the life that I've led and continue to lead to this day, I don't have the bling, I don't have the blang, I don't need them
You
because I
are
know
the
who I am.
bling.
I
You are
am
the
the
bling,
bling.
girl. You are the
Exactly.
bling. I
Exactly.
mean, I know seriously. You like your energy, like you just the strength in which you stand in your power, in your worth is impeccable.
And I must give thanks. Today's World Teachers Day. I must give
Mhm.
thanks to some educators in my past for teaching me the power of the English language,
Mm,
for teaching me how to write, for teaching me history of my people and history of the world. So there are those women whose shoulders I stood on. And then
mm.
there's women
Girl,
like
cold chills.
Beverly Anderson Manley, who is a former First Lady of Jamaica, who
Mhm.
I will walk across the waters for that woman if she calls me. There is another woman, Dr. Phyllis Green, Reverend Dr. Phyllis Green,
Mhm.
where I'm just paying tribute to women.
Please.
Reverend Dr. Phyllis Green, when I was at my lowest of low, when I was dumped after 16 years of living and loving and investing in a relationship, and I was dumped overnight, and I was swallowing those pills because I didn't know how I was going to make it. Reverend Dr. Phyllis Green, when she heard for 2 months, that woman was on the phone every night calling me just to check in, to pray with me, to
Mm,
do affirmations with me,
mm,
right? Those those are the
mhm,
woman that you're looking at now, those are the women who made me this woman. I stood on their shoulders. And right now
mm.
I have two other women in my life, Clara Brown,
Hmm.
Clara Brown has been through, and we have been through hell and high water in terms of friendship. You know, those female friendship that today you fight, tomorrow you don't talk, and then the next day you're hugging up and kissing. That's Clara Brown and I.
Yeah, yeah, I have a couple of those too. Or like, yeah, oh my God. Like, I have a couple of friends. I get so mad at them, I could spit nails, but you know, I they're soulmates. They're part
Yeah,
of my like their
yeah.
right arm and left arm, or like
I
right
will
arm, left
cuss.
arm.
I will pick up this phone now
Yeah.
and I will cuss Clara and I will say, "Girl," and then I love you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there is Gloria Williams. Gloria
Mhm.
is you see, I was saying to I you never met him. I have a co-host on our shows now, and his name
Mhm.
is Jarrell. And I was saying to him the other day that I don't believe in this one soulmate thing. I don't believe that we come into this life to find this
Oh,
one
right.
soulmate
Soulmates,
and
and they're not just somebody a romantic. Soulmates are people that like that are a part of like your life, like and they've been a part of so many different lives in different forms.
the book is out there. I have this book by a woman called Caroline Meese, Dr. Caroline Meese,
Hmm.
Myss. It's called Sacred Contracts. And I told Gerald that I'm going to get him a copy.
Sacred
Basically,
contracts.
yeah. Basically, she says in that book that we make contracts with other souls before we
Hmm.
get here.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you're going to come in at this point. This is the experience. We agree. And then she actually has exercises in the book that it's like you make your own cards.
Hmm.
You go through a whole process, and I've been through it many times, and I've drawn cards, and I can identify who came into my life, what contract we had, what was their role. It's a very powerful tool.
And you said cards, you mean tarot cards?
Not tarot cards. So she gives you the instructions, and so you will write on one sheet of paper: prostitute,
Uh-huh.
king, queen, thief.
I'm
She
getting
gives you
it.
the various titles, so you write it down. So you make your own little cards,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
then
okay.
you
I
shuffle
messed up.
them.
Mhm.
And yeah, and so yeah,
And
it's
do you and you
Mhm.
call out certain people's names?
Yeah.
Ah.
No, you don't have to call their names. Once you've done the exercise and you shuffle the card, you will know who is who. Some of them you haven't met yet. But so let's just say you call a prostitute and then you read her explanation of who the prostitutes is, that person's mission in your life, how that person's
Mhm.
supposed to, you will be able to recognize who's a prostitute in your life. And by me saying prostitute, it doesn't mean sex. It means somebody who it's a transactional relationship.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
good. Okay, good to know.
yeah, yeah. It's a
Oh, I'm
very
getting
good. If
sacred.
you're into that kind of stuff, it's called Sacred Contracts.
I'm
And her name is
yes.
Carolyn Meese. She's a emotional what she calls it, like she's an emotional counselor, intuitive.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. This has been an incredible. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you for
sharing
having
your
me.
story, for sharing your power, your power with me and anybody and everybody who's been watching. We've got several people who have joined on Instagram,
Okay.
and I don't have any comments on Instagram, and I don't have any comments tonight. But we've definitely had some consistent listeners, and I really appreciate everybody being here, and thank you again so much for sharing your story,
Thank you for
Claudette.
having
And
me.
Daughters of Sheba Foundation, there is in the description when I was sharing that you were coming on tonight, the
Mhm.
website to the Daughters of Sheba
Yes.
Foundation. If you want to donate, donate. Yes. Again, this
And
is
we don't ask
self-funded.
for a lot. We don't ask. We see if you even have $10.
Right.
Even
Exactly.
$10
I mean,
help, because just so people
yeah.
understand, $10 in Jamaica is $1,000. That's lunch money for a child for a couple of days. At least could be for a
Mm.
couple of days.
Yes.
So for example, like I said, we are privately funded. It's my money, it's Clara's money, it's Gloria's money. Sometimes
Mhm.
my daughter put money in it, but we're not talking now. So, but so for just as an example, we helped a woman turn, and I'm just telling you the more incredible
Yes,
ones and the
yes,
ones that
yes.
gave us
Please share.
permission
Please.
to be public. We helped a woman with about 20,000 Jamaican dollars, which is about 200 Canadian at the time. And we helped her to buy a stock of chicken, and she started a micro farm, chicken farm. And and we taught her, when you that stock is killed, make sure you reinvest the money. So she now has a nice little business going on. We
Yeah.
had another woman who, she's a seamstress, but she didn't have patterns for children clothes, and so we bought about 50 Canadian dollars worth of pattern. I shipped
Mhm.
it down, and now she has a nice little sewing business going on, because she
Yeah.
now has she that was going to be her niche, children clothes. She just didn't have
Yeah.
the pattern. So that we helped another woman with about another $200 to go to finish up her program. She's a social worker. We help to pay kids school fees. So it's not a lot of money,
Yeah.
in the scheme of things. It's not a lot of money. So if somebody gives us $10, we're very grateful for it. But if you don't want to give it, or you don't have it to give, that's okay. I'll give my lunch money.
Right. That's so beautiful. Yeah. So, and I'm going to post the link again in the comments,
Thank you.
under, because there's several different advertisements for you being on this evening. Claudette, thank you again so
Thank
much. This has
you.
just been an empowered conversation.
Conversation.
You are an absolute delight. And I can't tell you enough how much it means to me to be sitting here talking with a woman such as yourself, who is just so strong in who she knows she is, and just is this exemplary worth, immense worth and value that that you carry about yourself. It's just
Thank you.
awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for let's helping us to spread the word about our
Yes.
organization. And a lot of what we do too is through our social media programming. So if people like and follow us on Facebook, particularly, we're mostly on Facebook, but we're also on Instagram. That's how I'm linking with you now, on Instagram. Um,
Getting it.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Um,
Getting
we
it.
we recently got to the point on Facebook where we now can get stars. So if people
Mhm.
visit us on
Yes.
Facebook, they
Yes.
can support us by sending some stars. So I greatly appreciate it. I
Yeah.
greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you again so much for joining
Thank
Empowered
you.
Conversations this evening. I'm gonna end the live on Instagram. Thank you for everyone that has joined on Instagram quite a bit, and I hope everybody enjoyed this. Daughters of Sheba Foundation and Claudette Campbell Esterine.
No, it's Claudette
Claudette,
Esterine Campbell.
Claudette Esterine Campbell. Okay. Oh
Okay,
my, I
it doesn't
apologize.
matter.
Yeah.
Just
Um,
call me.
yeah, Claudette. So
Just call me.
cool. Will you stay right here? I'm gonna say goodbye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. See ya. All right, hold on. How do I? Oh, I never. I just X. With Instagram, it's just like you just X. So bye,
Bye.
and then end here.